If you open a newspaper or, doom scroll through your feed right now, you would be forgiven for thinking that the entire world has already been taken over by robots.
Oh, absolutely.
You know the narrative I'm talking about. It's just breathless. AI is everywhere. It's writing poetry. It's curing diseases. And if you aren't running a fully automated algorithmic empire from your basement, you're basically living in the Stone Age.
It does feel that way sometimes. The hype cycle is just, it's incredibly loud right now. And it creates this sense of uh, immediate urgency.
Exactly. But here is the reality check I had the other day. I walked into my local bakery to get a croissant. Then I went down to the small manufacturing plant on the edge of town to drop off a package. And I just looked around. Are robots actually running the show?
Probably not.
No. People are stressing out because the receipt printer is jammed.
It's always the printer. The printer is the undefeated champion of office frustration.
Right. And that disconnect between the AI revolution on Twitter and the jammed printer in reality is exactly what we are digging into today.
Oh.
We are looking past the headlines and at the actual economic backbone of the world, small and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs. We're doing a deep dive into a massive discussion paper by the OECD prepared for the 2025 G7 presidency of Canada.
And this document is fascinating because it completely strips away the sci-fi and looks at the hard economic data. The mission here is to uncover how these smaller players, who employ the vast majority of people, by the way, are actually using AI.
Right.
We're going to look at the huge gap between them and the corporate giants and the roadmap the G7 nations are building to, well, to try and fix it.
And just to set the stakes, you found a stat right at the beginning of this report that pretty much stops that AI is everywhere conversation dead in its tracks.
It really does. So if you look across all the OECD countries, so we're talking about the major developed economies, about 40% of large firms are using AI.
Okay, that's a decent chunk.
It's a decent chunk. It's approaching half. But when you look at small firms, it's only 11.9%.
11.9%.
That's it. So for every 10 small businesses you walk past on the street, maybe one of them is using AI in any kind of meaningful way. The other 9 are operating pretty much the same way they were 10 years ago.
Okay, so the little guy is definitely getting left behind right now, or at least they haven't gotten to the party yet.
Left behind might be a bit strong, or maybe just getting started later. The technology is there, but the adoption curve is steep. And as we'll see, it's not just about buying a subscription to ChatGPT.
No.
It requires a fundamental shift in how a business operates.
So let's get the lay of the land first. Who is actually using this stuff? Because 11.9% is low, but it's not zero, and I assume it's moving.
It is growing fast. The data shows that adoption in firms overall rose from 5.6% in 2020 to 14% in 2024.
Okay, so it's more than doubled.
It has. The trend line is definitely going up. But it is incredibly lopsided.
Lopsided how? Like geographic?
By sector, mostly. This is where the divide really shows up. If you're an ICT, information and communication technologies or professional services, adoption is high. We're seeing rates between 25 and 45%.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're digital native industries.
Exactly. If you're a software company, you're using software. If you're a marketing consultant, you're on the laptop all day anyway.
Sure.
But if you look at construction, transport, or food services, adoption is under 10%. And that matters because those are huge parts of our economy. That's the real world. It's building houses, moving goods, feeding people.
So why does this matter? I mean, I'll play devil's advocate here. Does my local construction crew really need AI? If they build good houses, why do we care if they use algorithms?
It all comes down to one word: productivity.
Right.
The OECD estimates that AI could boost annual labor productivity growth in G7 economies by anywhere from 0.2 to 1.3 percentage points over the next decade.
That sounds really small. 0.2%.
It sounds small in your bank account, maybe? But in macroeconomics, that's massive. That's the difference between a stagnant economy and a booming one. It's like compound interest on the entire nation's output.
Okay.
And if small businesses miss out on that, they become structurally less competitive. Their costs stay high while the big players' costs go down.
Okay, so the incentive is there. But if the incentive is there, why aren't they all doing it? The report brings up this concept called the J-curve. This sounded like a warning label to me.
The J-curve is critical to understanding the hesitation. Picture the letter J. You start at the top left. When you first adopt a complex new technology, your productivity doesn't go straight up. It dips down first. You go into the valley.
Because you're wasting time trying to figure out how to use the thing. You're fighting with the software instead of doing your actual job.
Precisely. You're training staff, you're reorganizing workflows, you're troubleshooting all the errors. It gets worse before it gets better. And for a massive corporation, a dip in productivity for 6 months is a rounding error. They have cash reserves.
But for the local bakery.
For a small business operating on thin margins, that dip can be terrifying. They might not have the cash flow to survive the bottom of the J-curve to get to the growth on the other side. It can be a valley of death for them.
That makes perfect sense. It's risky. But the report doesn't just treat all these businesses as one big group of non-users. This is where it got really interesting for me. They actually created a taxonomy, a way of categorizing them.
This framework is brilliant, I think, because it moves us away from that binary user versus non-user mindset.
Right, it's not a light switch.
Not at all. They propose 4 categories: novices, optimizers, explorers, and champions.
Okay, let's unpack these because I think this will help you, the listener, figure out where you might sit or where your company sits. Let's start with the novices.
So an AI novice is exactly what it sounds like. They are just starting out. They might be using embedded AI like a spam filter in their email or maybe a simple chatbot. They aren't building anything new. They're just dipping a toe in.
The report had a great example of this, a coffee roaster in San Francisco.
Right. This is a classic novice.
Yeah.
They aren't using AI to roast the beans. The core product is completely untouched. They're using ChatGPT to write SEO descriptions for their website, draft marketing emails, and maybe analyze some shipping costs.
Which is useful. It saves time on the boring stuff.
It's very useful. It's efficient.
Right.
But it's not revolutionary. It's not changing their business model. It's just speeding up the admin work.
Yeah.
Another example they had was a freelance photographer in Germany who uses LLMs to research business opportunities and draft emails.
So it's like having a really efficient, slightly robotic intern.
That's a great way to put it. Low risk, low cost, immediate benefit, but, limited upside.
Okay, so that's the novice. Step 1. What happens when you get a little more comfortable? You become an optimizer.
The AI optimizer is comfortable with digital tools. They aren't just using one tool. They're using multiple off-the-shelf products across different departments. They're stacking them.
The example here was an artisan bakery in France. And I love this because it shows you don't have to be a tech company to be an optimizer.
No, not at all. This bakery is surprisingly sophisticated. They use Midjourney, the image generator, to design visuals for their cookies for Instagram.
Smart.
They use ChatGPT to tweak recipes and handle customer service questions, and they use Shopify's built-in AI tools for sales data.
So they've got AI in marketing, AI in R&D, and AI in sales.
Exactly. It's cross-functional. They are still using standard tools that anyone can sign up for. They aren't coding their own neural networks, but they're integrating them into the actual flow of the business. It's becoming part of the furniture.
Okay, moving up the ladder, this is where the air gets a bit thinner. Next up, we have the AI explorers. This sounds more adventurous.
It is. The Explorer is taking a leap. They aren't just using off-the-shelf tools anymore. They're developing custom models or fine-tuning AI for very specific complex needs.
The case study here was a wholesale trader in Japan, and this one really stood out to me because it wasn't about generating images, it was about human connection.
This is a really cool use case. They are a micro business, tiny, but they sit in the middle of a global supply chain. They deal with local Japanese manufacturers on one side and global buyers on the other. And the language barrier was a massive daily headache.
And I guess standard Google Translate wasn't cutting it?
Not for complex negotiations and technical specs. So they didn't just use a public tool. They built custom AI agents specifically trained to handle negotiations and translations between these two groups.
Wow.
They fine-tuned the model to understand the nuance of their specific industry.
So they built a custom bridge using AI.
Yes. And that is a competitive advantage their rivals just don't have. Another Explorer example was a bag manufacturer in Italy. They used machine learning to analyze their production capacity and automate workflows right on the factory floor.
Okay, now we're talking.
That is way beyond writing marketing emails. That is operational transformation.
That's actual meat and potatoes, business change. Okay, and finally, the top of the mountain, the AI champions.
These are the firms where AI is basically in their DNA. It's enterprise-wide, it drives strategy. If you took the AI away, the company would probably just start functioning.
Who fits this bill?
Well, there was a healthcare tech firm in Canada. They use AI for clinical note transcription, lab report analysis, and even summarizing their own internal meetings, just everywhere.
Mm-mm.
Or the biotech SME in the UK that built custom machine learning models to predict therapeutic opportunities for rare diseases.
Wow. So they aren't just using AI, they are AI-enabled businesses.
Exactly. They're the ones pushing the envelope.
So we have this ladder: Novice, Optimizer, Explorer, Champion. The obvious question is, why isn't everyone a champion? Or at least an explorer? If the productivity gains are so high, what is stopping that construction company from moving up?
The report identifies four main enablers, or hurdles, really. And the first one is surprisingly basic. It's almost boring, but it's absolutely critical: connectivity.
You just mean internet access.
Just plain old internet access. You cannot run advanced cloud-based AI if you have a bad connection. And the data shows a 44% gap in download speeds between metropolitan areas and rural areas across the OECD.
That is a huge gap. We talk about the digital divide, but that's a chasm. So if you're a small manufacturer in a rural area, you might literally not have the bandwidth to be an AI champion.
Precisely. It's a structural disadvantage right from the start. You could have the smartest team in the world, but if your pipe to the cloud is too thin, you can't play the game.
Okay.
But let's assume you have the internet. The second hurdle is the big one. It's the number one barrier cited by SMEs everywhere: skills.
They can't find the people.
They can't find them, and they can't afford them.
Yeah.
If you're a small business, you just can't compete with Google or Amazon for an AI engineer's salary. And in one survey, 50% of SMEs said their employees simply lack the skills to use generative AI.
And the kicker.
The kicker is that under 30% of SMEs who are actually using AI are providing any training.
Wait. So they're giving their staff these powerful tools, but not teaching them how to use them properly.
It's the sink or swim method.
Yeah.
Here's ChatGPT, figure it out. And that's dangerous because it leads to errors, it leads to security risks like uploading sensitive company data, and it just leads to missed opportunities.
And I guess they don't have the HR budget for it.
Exactly. Which connects right to the third hurdle: finance.
Money.
Money. It always comes back to money. High interest rates recently have made it very expensive to borrow. If you're a small business, taking out a loan to invest in tech that might pay off in 3 years, remember that J-curve is a tough sell to a bank.
Is there any good news on the money front?
A little. The report mentions that fintech and AI credit scoring might actually help here. Ironically, AI can analyze a small business's data to prove they are creditworthy, even without a traditional credit history. So AI might help them get the money to buy more AI.
A virtuous cycle, maybe?
And then
The fourth hurdle.
AI enabling inputs. This is mostly compute raw processing power and data.
We hear about compute a lot with the big tech companies fighting over chips.
And if Google and Microsoft are fighting over chips, just imagine how hard it is for a startup to get access to them. The report notes that startups really struggle to get GPU contracts. It's expensive, and the supply is just so limited.
And the data side.
Well, AI needs clean, organized data to learn right. But SMEs often have messy data. It's on paper receipts in a shoebox, or in 5 different incompatible spreadsheets, or just in the owner's head. It's not ready to be fed into an algorithm.
So you have to clean your house before you can invite the robot butler in.
That is a perfect analogy. And cleaning that data takes time and money, which of course brings us right back to the other hurdles.
Okay, so the situation is, we have a clear taxonomy of users, but we have these massive structural barriers keeping people at the bottom of the ladder. Now let's talk about what the G7 governments are actually doing about this, because the report isn't just a complaint box. It lists very specific country spotlights.
It does, and what I find so fascinating is that each country seems to be playing to its own strengths or trying to fix its specific weaknesses. They aren't all doing the same thing.
There's no single Western strategy.
Not at all. Let's start with Canada, since they requested this paper for their G7 presidency.
Okay, what's their play?
Canada is laser focused on that compute hurdle we just talked about. They realize hardware is the bottleneck.
Yeah.
So they've launched an AI compute access fund that's 300 million Canadian dollars to help firms pay for processing power.
So they are subsidizing the engine itself.
Exactly. They are saying, we have the talent, but the gas is too expensive. Plus, they have a regional AI initiative to try and solve that rural-urban divide.
Okay, what about Japan? You mentioned the wholesaler there.
Japan's approach is very specific to their demographics. As you know, they have a rapidly aging population and a severe labor shortage. So their policy focus is on labor saving. They're offering subsidies specifically for robots and automation.
That makes total sense. They need AI to fill the gap left by retiring workers. It's not just about profit, it's about keeping the lights on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now look at France. Their focus is on consulting. They have a program called AI Booster.
AI booster. Sounds energetic.
It acts like one. It pays up to 80% of consulting costs to help SMEs figure out their data strategy. They realized small businesses don't just need cash, they need advice. They need someone to walk in and say, okay, here is how you use this.
That addresses the novice problem directly. A lot of businesses simply don't know what they don't know.
Right. It lowers the intimidation factor.
What about the UK?
The UK is targeting skills and sectors. They have a program called Bridge AI. They aren't just throwing money at everyone. They're targeting the sectors that are lagging, specifically construction, agriculture, and transport.
The ones you mentioned earlier with adoption rates under 10%.
Precisely. They are trying to bridge the gap between the high-tech world and the muddy boots world. They're attacking the lowest statistics.
And Italy.
Italy is doing something interesting with the tax code. Their Transition 5.0 plan offers tax credits for AI investments. But with a twist, the investments also have to help with energy efficiency.
Oh, interesting. Green AI.
Exactly. Killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Modernizing your industry while trying to meet climate goals. And finally, you have Germany. They are focused on testing. They've set up AI studios and AI service centers.
Like a showroom?
Kinda, yeah. Places where companies can go to test the technology before they buy it. It de-risks the investment. You can see if the robot arm actually works for your assembly line before you spend a fortune on it. It helps smooth out that J-curve.
So if we look at this across the board, the strategy seems to be move people up that ladder we talked about.
That's it. If you're a novice, France wants to give you a consultant to make you an optimizer. If you're an explorer, Canada wants to give you compute to make you a champion. It's a very targeted approach.
It's encouraging to see that there is a plan, at least. But bringing this all back to you, the listener, we've covered a lot. We've seen adoption is low but growing. We've seen it's not just about having AI, but about how deeply it's integrated.
From the coffee roaster to the biotech firm. And we've seen that the barriers, internet, skills, money, chips, they're very real.
I think the most important takeaway for me is that idea that adoption isn't a binary switch. It's not on or off.
No, it's a journey. And right now, generative AI things like ChatGPT is the big wild card. It's the entry point because it's so easy to use. The report says Gen AI is the most common starting line.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There is. But most SMEs are still using it for peripheral tasks. Writing emails, making images, that's great. It saves an hour a week. But it's not core production.
Right.
The real productivity explosion happens when AI moves from the marketing department to the factory floor or the logistics center or the R&D lab.
That's the leap from optimizer to explorer, and that leap is hard.
It's very hard. It requires trust, skills, and capital.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought from the report that I found a little unsettling. The source mentions, and I'm quoting here, more competitive firms are more likely to adopt AI.
The rich get richer problem.
Right. If the best, most profitable companies are the ones who can afford the AI, and the AI makes them even more productive, are we looking at a future where the gap between the best and the rest just becomes impossible to bridge?
That is the big macroeconomic question, isn't it? Is AI the great equalizer that lets a small bakery compete with a giant chain because they have access to the same intelligence? Or is it the great divider that lets the giant chain wipe out the small bakery because they have the data and the compute power to optimize them out of existence?
That is the billion-dollar question.
It is. And that is why these government policies are so critical. If they work, they level the playing field. If they fail, or if they're too slow, that gap just widens. And once it gets too wide, you can't close it.
So, for everyone listening, where do you fit in this taxonomy? Are you a novice, an optimizer, an explorer, or a champion? And more importantly, are you taking advantage of the resources, the consulting, the tax credits, the training that might be available where you are?
Don't stay stuck at the bottom of the J-curve. The tools are out there, but you have to reach for them.
Thanks for diving in with us.
My pleasure.